the fact that apart from the development issues that were discussed, one of the main things that were discussed, and it's big because it's in everyone's lips, and I know the first governor of Kiambu has already said that it was not about rallying support for the BBI. But then why would you bring it in this discussion? Apart from the fact that you're telling people, wait for the report, why would you bring it in the discussion?
He is the president.
So why would you bring it in the discussion?
To me. He is the president. He has heard people talking about BBI left, right, and center. Unless you have your ears closed and the head of state, the entire, every other matanga, every other barrio, every other public rally somewhere in Kenya, it is talking about BBI this, BBI that. So he wanted to clear the air, and I like what he said. And I don't even know why BBI is a subject today. Do we believe in building bridges? Is it building bridges between what and what? Hear me out, my take. In this country, we have Jubilee in leadership. Jubilee and its entourage, the entire team, right? And we have Bwana Tinga and his team on the other side. As many people would want to call him troublemaker, all those other things, I'm not interested. I am saying it is building bridges to take Kenya to the next level without having to fight after elections. So on one end is Jubilee, on one other end is the opposition leader, Raila Odinga. Is the president going to BBI alone? That is a question I would want you to tell me now. Because I believe the president should be in BBI with his entire team, starting with his principal deputy. But from the look of things, let's just speak honestly. From the look of things, the brigade that runs with the deputy president is against BBI. For what reason, we don't know. The brigade that runs with the president on the other side, they call themselves, I don't know, Kieleweke. They are pro-BBI. Is there something that these two teams know that the rest of Kenya does not know?
Now that you place
and
that...
then when will we have an open mind to suggestions of making Kenya a better place?
Okay.
Why do we have to fight things? And right now, if you were to ask me the subject we would have discussed here with Murkomen and Mheshimiwa Nyokabi, is why is it that the whole country is crying of hunger? Why is it that the entire youth of this country is crying of unemployment? Even the president himself comes and says he does not understand why people are broke. You understand? That is a subject that all these people should be talking about. Okay. Now that there's no opposition in terms of making noise and all these things, why don't we deal with these things? What is BBI?
Okay.
What is the threat of BBI and what is the favor of having BBI?
Governor, you have spoken. Understand? I have heard you. But this is, and you're on record, and you have made it clear. You've said you will not support. You know, initially, the non-support to the BBI initiative was based on other things, but you have the latest reason why you're not going to support the BBI. And it's not based on the outcome or the report, it's based on entirely different things, Senator.
If you remind him, if you remind Senator, because Senator speaks a lot, you know, in Senate, outside, everywhere. The last comment I saw him speaking 2 days ago. 2 days. He says, I will not support it unless you Lemutu akuje apologize.
Akuje apologize. It's not based even on the content.
You see what I'm saying?
First of all, when the president and the former prime minister shook hands last year, we were told that that is the end of violence, that's the end of ethnic politics, that is the end of all these bad things that were in our politics. And in fact, it's the former prime minister who said at the entrance of Arambe House that the problems end here. And we were told then that Handshake has given birth to something called Building Bridges Initiative, which has a 9-point agenda, including dealing with actions of violence, things to do with corruption, among others, many other things, election circles, election processes, and so forth. I was among the first Kenyans. When you bring a clip of what I've said now, you should also bring about the first one, because I was with the former prime minister in my place. And I was among the first people to say, this is a welcomed idea, this is the way to go, the country should go this direction. But no sooner did I say that than Governor Joe, the principal deputy of the former prime minister, spoke in Busia and said, this BBI, we've been told in this handshake, we only shake the hand of President Uhuru Kenyatta, but we must continue hammering the deputy president. The former prime minister never contradicted that position from his principal deputy. We moved from there. We were told at
So
some...
take note that they
Yeah,
are worried
yeah.
about
No,
the principal deputy saying something.
let me just...
Because we will come back and ask them.
I'm not-
The
can
principal
I-
deputy
I
is so
just-
and so.
you know,
I just want you to take
You're
note
always a
of what you're
very
saying.
calm person, and I don't.
We are on the same side,
And I
by
didn't
the way.
interrupt you. And I
Yes,
didn't interrupt you.
My apologies. My apologies.
We came meet somewhere. The former prime minister started saying the BBI is coming. It's a must. It will change the constitution. It's a tsunami. It will sweep others to the sea. So slowly, you can see there is an understanding of handshake from the President Uhuru Kenyatta and Jubilee administration differently, and former Prime Minister differently. Because even when we went to Kibra, there are some people who are trying to say, oh, you know, handshake says there is a handshake candidate. But in reality, the president endorsed his own candidate and sent him to go and run in Kibra. And credit to him, he speaks in Sagana and says, we did very well in the elections. We tried our best, and it was fairly peaceful elections, despite the fact that, I don't know is the words he used, but fairly speaking, it was fairer than many others. And this is the first time we were making a big contest in a place like Kibra. But that is not to mean there was no violence, that there was no goons, there was no this organization of hammering and beating people. Some people were injured. If they didn't die, it doesn't mean that there was no intimidation of voters coming out. Now, my take is that for as long as that is the modus operandi for the principle, or the other principle of handshake, which is a former prime minister, it is a fallacy. And I want to quote Moses Kuria, my friend, when he says that, you know, it looks like the debris that fell from the building bridges stones. The one that remained there is the one that was used to beat Didimas Barasa, and I'm happy they shook hands today, Kalwale, among others. It's a contradiction. It is a paradox that we are discussing handshake. On one side of the political divide believes that violence is still the way to do politics. And that's why I'm saying it will not make sense to revert back to this report and say, okay, we continue tabling these reports and continue with the handshake, and we have not solved the issues. Can I tell you what I believe handshake is supposed to do? One is that, as the president says, it should not be a game of absolute. I say it in my county, if you can get a clip, and I said, I find it very contradictory that a process that is supposed to unite the country, we are being told it's an absolute thing, take or leave it. But I'm glad the president, and I support him, says that it will be subjected to national conversation. Number two is that this handshake must, as a matter of urgency, and I agree with Honorable Kaboko 100%, it must prioritize the issues of poverty, the issues of maize, the issues of sugar, the issues of tea, the issues of coffee, the issues of rice, the issues of milk. Two, it must deal with youth unemployment. It must give an answer to the question, how do we deal with unemployment? Three, we must give us a permanent and final answer to the issues of using violence, either during campaigns
or after
elections, and you have a dispute, that the resolution of that dispute will use violence.
If it doesn't,
do you know something that
if it doesn't,
then it's a fallacy. It becomes it's a zero game. You go back to zero. Why? Let me say why. Because we have now legitimized the violence as a means of getting yourself to the table.
Okay.
That if you lose an elections, you can cause as much violence as possible,
so that you're
then you will be called for an handshake, and you will be accommodated. If we don't give an answer to that question, we are actually shooting ourselves in the foot.
Okay. Yeah. There are good reasons for the BBI. I was very happy myself with the president's own starting of the conversation. And BBI, the president spoke for about an hour, BBI took 5 minutes. So that tells you how much time it took in the whole speech. So that wasn't the main thrust of his speech. But in addressing the BBI, he raised 2 or 3 issues that are particularly critical. The one man, one vote, which is still something very important. I mean, population is the basis of representation. I think that needs to be done within the processes that we have. The other one which he raised, which I personally really support, is addressing the winner take all. We must have a country where the person with the greatest number of votes goes to State House. The Constitution must say what happens to the person with the second greatest number of votes. I think this idea of having a strong leader out on the streets is something that the country needs to deal with. We can't have a constitution that only deals with the winner. It must deal with the second person in the contest because of the national unity issues that we have.
But that's
What
not the
happens to the
intention
third
of
person?
No. Allow me the conversation. I'm the one on the podium now.
Yes.
Murkomen was in the last parliament, just like myself. to have the opposition members of parliament led by an opposition leader who is not in parliament has very serious weaknesses of that house. It is important that the opposition leader comes to the houses so that that opposition leader can check the government. And that is what we would be saying in terms of winner-take-all, addressing the winner-take-all approach. The last one is corruption. That leaders who are corrupt should not be in public office. Any leader convicted of corruption, and I like how he put it, should be 100 yards away from leadership. I think that is going to be important for our country in the fight against corruption. For us women, we have particular reasons of supporting the BBI. With the Embrace movement, we actually did give a detailed document around the 9 points. The shared prosperity, the Big Four agenda must include women. The housing that we see, the health issues in our country, the National Health Service Commission, they are really, really critical areas that were not addressed by the Constitution and that have not been addressed by administrative procedures that need to be addressed. On the women agenda, again, the question of including women. You know, a handshake can be a handshake of men. A handshake can be a handshake of tribes. A handshake can be a handshake of ethnic communities. And sometimes the handshake of ethnic communities will leave out women. So we have really, we are fighting very hard that inclusion must also be gender inclusion. And the census backs us. We are 50.5% of the population. The representation, even as we do handshake, even as we do BBI, we want to see 50% of appointive positions with women. Some of these matters have no other way. We've taken the 2/3 bill to Parliament 4 or 5 times. It has not passed. He's been our good supporter on that fight. In fact, one of the processes has been, had we started in Senate, we probably would have had better luck than if we started at the National Assembly. But now that that matter of not more than 2/3 has not been addressed, a process that like BBI, if it comes up, that should be one of the ways. The opposite gender rule, if Governor Kabogo vies for governor, the running mate should be a woman, must be a woman. If the presidential candidate is male, the running mate should be female, so that you have inclusion not just of tribes, but inclusion of gender and increasingly inclusion of young people. We are hoping the BBI can give a threshold. Women, we got the not more than 2/3. Things have changed a little, 47 women reps and all that.
Question
but
that
the
I
youth
asked
need a
Kipchumba.
threshold now in the
Same
constitution.
question I asked Kipchumba. What if it's not in the report? What happens?
You know, this is a consultation phase.
It's not. It's
no,
done.
it's not done. Let me separate it this way as a lawyer. Let me separate as a lawyer.
Yes.
There is a consultation phase. We are going to come to the legal processes, like what we saw of the Punguza Mzigo.
Yes.
There will be a bill. So this is the consultation phase.
But after how long?
No, there will be.
In fact, we don't even have a framework.
in fact,
we don't even have a framework.
The BBI will address that. When those are some of the things we're going to read in the report.
Yes.
But more importantly, even for us women, is to ask that whatever processes are going to be there, because this is not the legal process yet. This is the consultation process. Can we see inclusion of women in the rest of the processes? There might be a constitutional conference. It might be a bill drafting process. Can we have inclusion of women in all of those processes? No, this is a report. It's consultation. It's all consultation. All this is consultation.
Yes.
And it is even
I'm
subject
going
to
to
more
allow you.
consultation.
I'm going to allow you, but I need this question.
consultation.
What if it doesn't contain what you're proposing?
We have more legal processes coming. This is the
So it
consultation
will have to
phase.
be redrafted.
Not redrafted. We haven't done the bill yet. This stage is only
we don't even know. We don't even know if there will be a bill.
No. There will be some resultant legal
Which one?
review.
Okay, I'm coming to you, gentlemen. But tell me, from this end, once the report is presented to the president,
Yes.
what happens to the report next?
The report will detail the roadmap. It will, up to this level, it is a
So we
constitutional
are operating on a
phase.
document that we don't even understand the next
We
thing.
will read, but it must provide a roadmap.
Okay.